I'm also going to try and get a good recording.
This is awesome. Okay, guys, thank you to Mr. Bell who's doing all of this. He is keeping track of the entire grade 11 cohort and all of the grade 11 cohort teachers, which were sporadic. So
They are sporadic. They're sporadic. So I'm going to try and kind of kill two birds with one stone. I am going to try and deliver this in the TED style for you. Okay, so while I'm talking to you about the tech stuff and the way you can make your presentation more techy, I'm also going to try and do the things that you would do in a pretty standard talk. So be watching kind of what I do and that kind of thing. Okay, so really you're just sitting and getting right now, and hopefully you'll get something of value out of this. We'll see how it goes. The first time I've tried to do it this way. All right. So hold on. So the overarching, not the best way to start, right? The overarching idea for today is really how do you make your technology kind of stand out and yet not detract from your own attention, okay, from what you're trying to do. Because ultimately we want them to pay attention to you. You're supposed to be the experts, okay? So today I'm going to talk to you about using technology to empower your presentation and to make it stronger. I like to start with a quote and a big image by Billy Wilder. I'm going to leave that up there for a second so that you can take a look at it. Pretty simple, right? Definitely one of those things that makes you think of things, kind of draws out almost an aggressive idea, but you've got 7 minutes to talk to the crowd, okay? So effective presentations have three things. They are themes and layout, colors and fonts, okay? Consistency has to be part of your presentation. When you look at your theme, when you look at your layout, when you color and your fonts, your consistency is what is super important, because if it's not, we get confused. We're looking at too many things, right? So making sure that we do that for people makes it simple. The other thing we do is we tell a story, okay? We keep it organized for our viewers, right? We kind of try to make sure that when they're listening to you, they don't have to think about a whole bunch of things. So you give them the ideas up front. Tell them what you're going to talk about as much as you can at the beginning. Okay? And then we try to be creative. Most of the TED Talks you've seen, somebody has tried either a creative trick or they've tried to do something that gets the attention. In writing, we call it a hook. When you've got 7 minutes to talk, it better be something really, really solid. Okay? So you can use unique graphics, or you can talk about you. That personal piece of you, right? Giving them an example. So let's talk about being consistent. When we look at this kind of slide deck, very, very, very consistent, right? Things up there that are consistent are color, the background, the theme, all very, very consistent, even down to a point of when there's an image in there, it's framed, it's under kind of the bigger ideas, okay? Your font is all the same size and color, no matter numbers, okay, or highlighting information. When we give the headers, they're like this. When we give the real text, they're kind of a little bit lighter, a little thinner, but everything is super consistent. Remember, you don't want them thinking about what's going on. You don't want them to see a bunch of different slides unless you're talking about the different slides out there, okay? So consistency is really important. Color is probably the most important thing, right? When we're talking about color, things like red. When you put something in red, you kind of know that that's caution, right? That's cautious, that's scary kind of thing. When we put something in green, we typically think of conservation and natural nature type things, all right? So be thoughtful about your colors. One thing that people often forget is it's going to be presented huge up on a projector. Sometimes those wash out colors like yellow, all right, or off-white or gray. So stay away from those, just avoid them altogether, because you don't want people, again, to be kind of trying to figure out or trying to see what's up there. The other thing with fonts is that you've got to be sure that you're speaking to an international community, right? If your TED Talk goes up and you have 200,000 people watching it, I guarantee you some of those people will have trouble if it's not a clear font. And this is, we all know that Comic Sans is kind of a funny font, right? Not a professional one. But other fonts, like anything in a script style, There's loads of languages in the world that do not even have a script. So for them, naturally, this is going to be a bit different, okay? So things like, those are actually called wingdings, okay? We try to avoid those if we can. Something nice and clean, kind of boring, but it's easy to read. Again, you want them to see what you're putting up there and you want them to understand it, okay? So let's get organized. What do we do to organize? You storyboard it out, you outline. So you started with your outline. Hopefully you've manipulated your outline a little bit. You're trying to make it a little tighter, a little more interesting. It doesn't hurt to storyboard out your slides. That's what that feature is for. In Google Slides, that's what that feature is for. In PowerPoint, Keynote, whatever you decide to use, it's so that you can see how it flows. Okay, and when we look at it in this format, we're looking for highs and lows. So if you're looking at it, you're like, this is kind of a really thick, dense, heavy part of my talk. I want to do something light right after that, or I want to do something light coming into that. Okay? So it helps you kind of get a bird's eye view and perspective on your topic and your talk. Okay? Other things. We all have a good idea of what an infographic is now, right? And infographics are great for this process because remember, we said we need to see some statistics. We need to see some good data. That's basically what an infographic is by nature, okay? But how you put it out there, infographics are notoriously bad for that. They are notoriously bad for being kind of a shotgun approach, right? The information just sprayed onto a page, sometimes nicely, sometimes not, okay? You get the general idea of what's going on here, but it doesn't communicate a clean message. This does not communicate well, right? Even though there's tons of great information here. I do like how this one's color-coded though. Do you see that? Democrats, Republicans, right? Even the faces are colored a little blue and a little red. Very cool, kind of unique trick, right? Grab your attention. How many colors are on that? Right? When we look at that, we see blue, red, white, and black. And that's about it, I think. That's about it. There is a gray that's in there a little bit, so 4 colors is probably an optimum number. 3 colors is better. Again, we're not looking to like blow them away with the color. We're trying to make sure that they understand what we're saying, okay? Sometimes you want a blank slide. When that slide went blank, what did you do? You looked to me, right? That's a very, very cool speaking trick. Talk to me, look at me. I've got something important to tell you right now. Don't look up here, okay? You've basically directed their attention to you, so it's a good trick to use, okay? How clear is that? In the back, you guys can probably see that still, right? Even though it's in yellow. So breaking the rule I just explained to you, but because I put it on a black background, it stands out. Now, maybe not yellow. I tried the yellow to see, but I'm not happy with it. That would not make me excited to see the yellow in there, okay? So something to think about. Okay, let's talk about methods. Methods of creating slides. You probably didn't know that there was such a thing, but there is. What I'm about to tell you about comes from Presentation Zen, which is Garth, I can't believe I forgot his name. Anyway, it's him. His Presentation Zen book has sold millions and millions of copies. He's an amazing speaker himself, and one of the big-time people that he recommends is a guy called Guy Takahashi. I guarantee you have seen a presentation with Guy Takahashi behind it. He usually puts up something very stark and very clean. What happens here is it takes you about that long to see that that's 90%, right? Then you look back to me for what? Why are you showing us 90%, Bill? And that's because your brain processes numbers 90% faster than images. Okay, we just know what a number is. We're trained to do that because of money and time. So numbers really get and drive home a topic. Here's some other examples of Takahashi's, okay? They're simple, they're bold, they're clean. And you can see, we don't even have to know what any of that means, but those are examples of what his slides would look like. Very clean and clear, okay? So you don't have to have rocket science for your presentation. How does that work? I'll let you read that for a second. I like that last line. But it's also shallow and boring. Okay? So we want them to know more, but do they always know from what we put up? So there's two ways to look at that. One thing is questioning every photo you put up. Don't put up a photo that doesn't have meaning. Okay? This photo I put in to make you question photos, right? This is a photo. Does it fit? Does it look good? Does it convey a message? Maybe, maybe not. I'm explaining the message now though, right? So again, I've attracted your attention. I gave you time to read that, right? And now I'm kind of directing you to it. To a point, do I have to read that whole thing to you? How many people fall asleep when that happens? When somebody sits there and reads a presentation to you? Yeah, seriously, I'm out. I'm going down. Okay? So some things to think about when you put up an image and things to think about when you put words up there. Okay? That's Seth. Seth Godin is the guy who wrote Presentation Zen. Okay? That's his name. And his style is kind of this contrasting style. Right? So he tries to put something very pointed, very specific on one side, and then he tries to put something, the antithesis to that, on the other side. He also is masterful in the imagery, right? Things like a black and white image, they immediately make you think of a time and a period, right? Things like this. Don't know what he's thinking about, but he is contemplating, he's thinking, right? So those images, not only do they speak, but then he put the words next to it, and he makes that very, very clear and pointed and consistently kind of develops that black and white scenario. All right, so Seth Godin's really, really good. And then there's this. So I'll let you read that. Okay, to err is human, to forgive is divine. So a very pointed quote, right? And I've got who it came from up there. This is Lawrence Lessig. I like Lessig a lot. He gives you kind of ideas to think about. He puts something up there. It's a great way to start a presentation. An amazing book. Put up a fantastic quote, a shocking quote, something that makes people think like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen to me in the next 7 minutes? Okay? Lessig is really good at this kind of thing. He even, as you can see, he plays around with fonts a little bit to see what kind of shock value we can get out of that. That's just another way. None of these guys like pile stuff into their slides. All of this is very crisp, clear, and everything is done thoughtfully. Okay? Creative. Now there's no end to being creative. Okay? What you don't want to do is waste time being creative. That means building this thing, that means in the middle of your talk. If you do something creative, great, but make sure it's effective and make sure it's easy for you to do. Okay? So, I told you about numbers being really quick for us to recognize. Images are the next most absorbable things, right? So we quickly threw this one up. You get the picture of a brain and that image. Whether you know it or not, you looked at the head with the brain before you read those words. So do we always have to put words on a slide? No, not necessarily. Let the image speak for you sometimes. Let the image speak for you because it's going to be consumed much faster. Okay? To a point that there's a statistical representation, isn't there? We have, what, 3 out of 4 men, 2 out of 3 women, right? You take either one of those and we have a statistical representation of what we need. Makes it a little more interesting. We can color code them, we can make them do special things, we can talk about short people, tall people, right? Raising your hand now. But anyway, you can do something creative just by changing how you represent a number, okay? You can talk about growth in different manners and shapes. We look at this and we see the little guy getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We know it's either progressing, getting bigger, taking time, extending, whatever it is, but we know naturally that that's a way to show growth. Okay? The other one, and this one's kind of cool, a little bit tougher to pull off, is to have something built in there that you're going to fill out. Maybe it's a chart, maybe it's a map, maybe it's a wheel, but we've got 2 solutions there. There's our 3rd solution. There's our full 4th solution, fully built out. The other nice thing about doing something like this, if you've got something super technical in your talk, this is a good way to make sure that you remember it. Because you are going to have to memorize this, right? To some degree, you're going to have to memorize this. And having something help you in your slides, awesome. It's calming for you, and it makes it a lot easier. Okay? So, I say preparing to fail, because no matter what you do planning, something is going to happen. Just be ready. Just be ready. Like, this is a wrinkle, right? Good wrinkle, just right there happened, right? I couldn't get the backpack on the clicker. Did I have to freak out? Did I have to do anything crazy? No. Just take it off, set it down, and move on. Move on, okay? You need to get through your speech. You can't stop up here and be like, oh, can I start over? Oh, I wish I could do this again. No, just move on. We're humans. We know mistakes happen, okay? So some don'ts, really quickly. I hate don'ts, but I'm going to tell you, don'ts. Too much, right? I put that up, even if I gave you a moment to look at that slide, right? Do you look at the percentage in red? Do you look at the arc? Do you look at what is this showing? Do you look at the title? Do you look at this percent? Too much stuff, too much stuff. And what that means is you're not listening to me anymore, you're trying to read that, and I've lost you. Okay, don't do that. Keep that in mind. How important is what you put on the slide, okay? And this one, I totally hate when somebody stands there and reads all the words to you with their butt to you, okay? I hope my back looks good, but I don't know. You won't know either, all right? So you don't want to do that to people either. You also don't want to be real fidgety. So you've probably noticed I've walked around a little bit. I've got a space. There's a little bit of a method to that madness that I'm walking around, right? And if you think about what is it, pathos and ethos, I try to come out and be with you a little bit, right? Those are all little tricks that we use while we're talking to people and making sure things happen. But the worst thing you can do is show them your backside and read to them. Okay? So the three things we want to make sure we do in our presentations is be consistent, be organized, and be creative. Hopefully that's something you got out of a little presentation here. Hopefully you'll be ready soon. Thank you. I don't know how long I was, but that's pretty much a lot of the details that you need to get in there. I'm going to stop that now. We'll see how bad I was.